So, I used to work as a personal trainer at a very familiar gym in my city to help pay for college. The neighborhood this gym was located has two other gyms across the street, so we could have a lot of clients changing from place to place. I worked the night shift since I was out of class around 6 p.m. and I worked from 6:30 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. Usually a lot of guys would go for experimental classes at night, and I was known for working with the quote bodybuilders. At around 9 p.m. this huge guy with a very arrogant posture walked in for an experimental class. The secretary immediately sent him to me, and I was more than happy to help him out, although I was pretty sure he already worked out and needed no help whatsoever. Weird, but okay. Throughout the whole hour, this guy would ask me very personal questions. Where do you live? Are you single? What's your shoe size? Etc. And as I was working, I just politely tried to keep our conversation focused on training and exercising and stuff. When the class was over, he looked at me and said, "Can I have your number?" "I'm sorry, but I have a fiance." "Are you sure? I usually don't take no as an answer." "Yes, I am here just to help you exercise properly. Nothing else." Then this guy just puts his finger at my face and goes, "When I get my gun, you won't say no to me." And then he just walked out of the door. For almost a month, I needed to ask a male coworker to go with me to the parking lot late at night because this guy would be at the corner waiting for me to get out. He would stare at me and smile, waiting for me to leave. Later, I found out he was at the gym across the street and took my car's license plate. I had to ask one of my clients that was a cop to scare him out. Until this day, I can't get his smiling face out of my head. To the creepy, most likely roided up guy that was threatening me at the gym, let's not meet. Creeps by the Beach, a saga. Background: these all took place outside my home at the time, which was on the literal last block of a major city, right across the street from the beach. The building was framed on four sides by the beach, the woods, a construction site, and few other sleepy houses, as well as a muni line. Think the subway but above ground. It's the very last stop on the muni, so unless you catch it at the right time of day or at the height of tourist season, the area is basically empty on all the sidewalks. The house itself has an initial patio door, which doesn't always fully close if you don't slam it, and then an entry area with a staircase leading up to the second locked door that leads to the apartment. Experience 1. I get home from work one day at about 9 p.m. and I immediately get into a small spat with my roommates. After about 30 minutes, I decided to leave the house to cool off. I had planned on sitting on the porch outside, but as I looked across the street at the ocean, I decided it would be more peaceful there. I had never been to the beach at night for safety, but as I looked at the well-lit parking lot and no one in sight, I decided it would be alright. In the 1 block span from the beach to my home, there was a little wooded path that started on my street and dumped you out at the crosswalk for the beach. It also intersected with another pathway that took you down to the coast. Everything was fine, and after a while I started the 1-minute walk back on the little path. All of a sudden, I look up and see a man walking briskly on the intersection path, looking right at me. I speed up a bit and try to ignore him, and as we hit the section where the two paths intersect, I end up being about a foot away from him. He calls out to me, "Hey, I want to talk to you." I ignore him, and after a few more steps, he reaches out his hand and grabs a part of my hair, saying, "Hey, come here." I immediately yank my hair out of his hand and book it to the last block, sprinting to my house, and I can hear him running behind me. I turn the corner sharply and I am briefly out of his sight. Luckily, the initial areaway to the patio had been left by accident, and I run through the door and slam it shut. I hear his footsteps stop outside, followed by silence. As I go upstairs and look through the front of our window, I see him walking away into the construction site. Experience 2. I had a friend that lived a couple blocks from where I was, along the same stretch of beach. After hanging out one day, I decided to head back home around sunset. I've walked this routine many times, and it's just barely light outside still. Only a 5-minute walk, so I figure I'll be home before dark. As I cross the intersection from their house, I notice a white van parked on the corner that is not usually there, covering a little garden I like to look at on my way back. I can just barely make out 2 people in the front seat. I think, odd, okay, whatever, and I pull out my pepper spray, just in case. I cross the street passing the van and now have my back to it. As soon as my foot hits the pavement on the other side of the street, I hear the van start up. I turn my head just slightly and I see them illegally turning onto the street where I am now walking. They creep the van beside me slowly, just behind me, within my peripheral vision. I decide to stop and let them pass. I pause and pretend to be looking at my phone and see them stop driving immediately. This was a nope from me, and I broke into a run, the van following me to a small vintage motel about 1 building away that I know has an open entrance courtyard, and as I approach it, I turn quickly into the yard and run up to an archway entry for a unit. I stop at the first few steps, catching my breath, and I open my phone front camera to use it as a sort of mirror to see what the van is doing. They had backed up to the entry of the motel and sat there for a few minutes. Then, the one on the passenger side opened the door and started walking towards the motel. His phone flashlight was on, and I immediately pulled my phone back, listening for his footsteps and readying myself to start banging on the motel door, hoping someone was inside. I waited in silence for a long time, long enough for it to get dark. I finally look out again, and both the man and the van are gone. I call an Uber to take me the last 2 blocks. Sorry, Uber driver. And I never saw them again. Experience 3. I have a friend over, and we want to do a dab. It's about 10 p.m. and my roommates don't like dabbing in the house because of the smell. So he and I go out into the parking lot in front. We're there having a good time when I notice a person walking down the block, pulling on car door handles. I notify him and we watch as that same person comes up to the car and yanks on his back door. He honks his horn and they back up for a minute. Then he walked up to his driver's side window and knocked on the window, making a motion to roll it down. Just as I am about to tell him, "Don't," he rolls down the window a bit. The person is clean and normally clothed and asks what day it is and what time it is, to which my friend answers. They then stand there and stare at us as he tries to usher them away, even offering them money. Without saying anything, they walk away down the block, and once they reach the intersection between the construction site and woods, they roll their heads back up to the sky and just start screaming at the top of their lungs as they back away out of sight. I take this opportunity to dart back inside my house as my friend watches, making sure to close the patio door. A few hours later, one of my roommates comes home very drunk, and as we figured, they failed to make sure the patio door was shut all the way. Morning time comes, and I wake up in an empty apartment. I open my phone and I have a singular message from my roommate from 3 hours ago, stating that when they left for work this morning, there was a person that they didn't know sleeping inside the patio area. They thought it was a drunk person who lived in the neighborhood and entered the wrong house by mistake, and evidently did not find it enough of a reason to call me or wake me up. I immediately go to the entry of our apartment, pulling the door fast. To my surprise, the person who had been talking to us in the car the night before is laying casually across the staircase, my staircase, fiddling with something. I scream, "Hey!" loudly, and they immediately hop up and run out of the patio door. I run down the stairs and after them after they open the door. They are standing across the street, just smiling at me and giggling. They then gave me a little wave and run off. I close the door hard and go back up to the steps to see what items they had left. Sitting on the steps was a few coins, some weird wire type objects, a lighter, and a pocket knife. And I never saw them again. I also got a lot of questions regarding calling 911 on my last post, and I wanted to clarify. I am from a rural area and have had many bad experiences with cops abusing power, and had been raised to always be wary of police. I've also had situations that were severe enough that I did need to call them, and they didn't help me. So that is not really a thought that goes through my head when dealing with these situations. And I've learned to take care of myself or utilize community resources for other situations. And these all happened years ago, and it's pretty wild to look back on and remember how terrified I felt these times. So, there are my stories. I hope you all enjoyed.